Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of life coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program. Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of life coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program. We'll be right back to the show. But before we do, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, factormeals.com, where if you go to factormeals.com/unbroken50 and use the code unbroken50, you can get 50% off your first order. That's factormeals.com/unbroken50. If you're like me and you are a person who is busy trying to create a life, heal, work on their health, wealth, and relationships, and not to mention deal with the day-to-days of normal life, you do not have time to be going to the grocery store and trying to figure out what you're going to cook every single day of the week. In fact, one time I did the math and I realized I was spending over 15 hours a week at the grocery store and cooking. When I added Factor, I got to use that time for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my community, and for my business. And so if you're in the place where you need some more support in the kitchen, head to factormeals.com/unbroken50 and use the code unbroken50 to get 50% off. Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of life coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program. It's interesting growing up in America being biracial. More so growing up seeing both sides of the tracks, living in immense poverty in white communities and black communities. And you know what's interesting about this that most people don't resonate with unless they are from a community like this? And when I say like this, I mean impoverished, below the income line, getting government food, WIC. You live in a cheap apartment subsidized through HUD housing. When I say this, that's what I mean. I'm not saying that maybe it doesn't cross barriers into more affluent communities, but I'm saying like where I'm from, this is this. And the thing that these communities have in common is that we all have historically, at least when I was growing up, had a massive disdain for the police. Now, I know I'm going to lose some of you there, but hold on a second. In today's episode, I have an amazing guest, Chris Sherwin, on the podcast. And Chris spent over 20 years in law enforcement and is one of those guys that sees life through a totally different scope. What's really incredible about the way he thinks about the world is his mission is to help police departments improve their trust and relationships in the communities that they serve. And one of the things that he's doing as well is helping entrepreneurs do that also. And I wanted to have Chris on the show to have this conversation. One, because he's approaching the conversations around communities and police in a different way. And two, he really honestly opened my eyes to some things that I was blind to, things that I had never taken into consideration. And it's interesting growing up the way I did, having to run from the police, getting shot at by the police, getting in trouble by the police, being in handcuffs more times than I can count. And I will say this, I will point to my own guilt as every one of the reasons why those things happen. But as we look at the world and the society that we live in today, between the movements between all cops are bastards and people constantly feeling fear of the police, I will be honest, I had a little hesitancy sitting down with Chris. And I told him up front, I was like, man, look, I don't know where this conversation's going, but let's just be honest. Let's talk about the mental health impact of the police departments in our communities. Let's talk about the mental health impact of what it's like to be a police officer today when nobody walks the beat and you couldn't even name a cop in your neighborhood if you wanted to. And to be honest, this was a really powerful conversation. And I realize like not everyone's going to understand why I wanted to have this conversation. And that's totally fine. You don't have to listen to this, but I encourage you to think about this from a different perspective and a different approach. You know, one of the things that Chris talks about on the show, and I won't get into it so that you can listen, is just the experience of what it's like being a police officer and going into homes knowing that a child had been abused or traumatized. And as you know, the mission and the goal of this show is to end generational trauma through education and information. And my hope is that this episode will do that with a little bit more depth in an area that, to be frank, I think a lot of people are afraid to step into. And so very grateful for Chris and the conversation that we had today. You can learn more about him on thinkunbrokenpodcast.com. We'll have all the links and the show notes. Do me a favor, please leave a review for the show if it brought you any value today. And without further ado, my friends, Chris Sherwin. You're listening to the Think Unbroken podcast, and I'm your host, Michael Unbroken. I'm an author, speaker, coach, and advocate for adult survivors of childhood trauma and abuse. In this podcast, you will learn how to transform your trauma into triumph, turn breakdowns into breakthroughs, and go from victim to being the hero of your own story. You can learn more at thinkunbrokenpodcast.com, and of course, check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify at Think Unbroken Podcast. Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? Hope that you're doing well wherever you are in the world today. Very excited to be back with you with another episode with my guest, Chris Sherwin, who is a business and entrepreneur coach. Chris, my friend, how are you today? What is happening in your world?
Oh, Michael, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to start getting on some of these shows like yours and start spreading the word. Everything's going good, just doing my thing. I mean, out there trying to educate people and grow myself and kind of get the word out there. And that's really about it. How about you? How's your work going with you?
Yeah, man. Life is amazing. Every single day I wake up, I'm so happy that I get to do this, and it's such an honor to be here with you today. Because I've been looking forward to connecting with you, knowing a bit about your background and your history and what you've done. And I was just like, this dude's super interesting. He's had a journey, and I think it's going to be helpful for some people, especially to hear this kind of conversation that we're going to have today. So I've been looking forward to this. For those who do not know you, Chris, tell us a little bit about your backstory, the things and your experiences of your life that have led you to where you are today.
Oh my God. Okay, so that could be a show, or a therapy session, one of the two. So,
Either
um,
way.
but yeah, so I mean, I grew up Chicago, middle class family. Dad was a teacher, mom was a nurse, and kind of grew up just in a normal household. Strong Polish background, hardworking, that kind of stuff. And I guess I knew from kind of a young age, I knew two things. One thing is I wanted to go in law enforcement, and the second thing is I did not want to live on a, from a financial perspective that my parents did. Now, everybody kind of says, well, my house was full of love. We went on vacations. My parents have been married 50 years. Emulate their marriage was the goal. And it was just from a financial background. I just remember like my mom and dad back in the day, you didn't have to sign a check. And when you sent it to the electric company, they couldn't cash it. So they call you, hey, Mr. Sherwin, you forgot to sign your check. And you're, oh my God, I'm so it would buy us 10 days for electric. So we really didn't have a lot of money. But I knew those were 2 goals in my life, and I knew that young. So, at the age of 10, I started hustling, regular stuff, shoveling snow, cutting grass, getting people to work for me, that kind of stuff. And then just throughout the years, I just kind of just knew that education for me was a big deal. And then so I go through normal teens, football, baseball, basketball, girls, friends, the whole everything normal. And, then I went to school. I went to college and, went to college, got done with a couple degrees in 3.5 years because I really wanted to get out and get into the working world. And I was working the whole time through doing my hustle, got my master's, and I just started getting job good job after good job. People would call me, I would network, and I started getting job after job. But all deep down, I knew those two goals were to work in law enforcement to help people but yet not be broke. And that was that's a very, very, very tough gap to close. Well, anyway, I was a chief financial officer for a company, and we had a domestic situation one day. Officers came in, handled their business, did a great job, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. So 2 weeks later, I started applying, got my first police job, quit my CFO job, which basically my first year salary as a cop was um, my annual bonus at the previous company. So, um, and my wife and I talked. She thought I was absolutely crazy. She just said the only thing she wants to do is, she wants to stay home and raise the children. So make it work. So I go to the academy, I get on the street, start doing my thing. And like every cop, I start working part time. And then with my business background, I'm like, hey, I could do this, security better, cheaper, and and more efficient. So hence I started my security business and I was blessed. It took off, it did well. Meanwhile, working on the streets, having um, my entrepreneurial mindset, working my business and reaching my goals, by doing them both. A lot of work, but it's very self-satisfying. I'm a very goal-oriented person. Over the years, doing it all, doing both those things, living my dream, living my goal, and decided to retire out of Illinois. Retired as a policeman out of Illinois, came down to Florida. I'm a policeman here now, and um, during this whole transition, I kind of thought to myself, like, hey, I could help other people do stuff. I could, from an entrepreneur life mindset, because people always still say, like, oh, how did you do it or whatever. And to me, it was like, well, I just did it. I mean, I didn't really think about it. I knew where I wanted to go. So I just did it. And anyway, so that's kind of like where the whole birth of the life coaching thing came on. And then during this whole time, there was a couple of things that we'll probably get into later in more detail that happened in my police career that kind of all came together with this whole George Floyd thing, Michael Brown, George Floyd. And being on the street, boots on the ground in all kinds of different neighborhoods, talking to all kinds of different people, there was a huge disconnect, a huge disconnect. So I started a podcast called Three Cops Talk with the two of my friends that were policemen. And we just started putting out, I guess, positive, truthful, hurtful, meaningful, gainful information for people to really realize what the world is like and how we can bring our worlds together and stop the nonsense. So that was kind of like all in my journey, and basically here I am today.
Yeah, that's quite the journey, man. It's really interesting because I think that especially in the society and the world we live in, especially in America, and this is an international show, people around the world listen. There is such a conflict right now in this country between law enforcement and civilians, and I think
Right,
it's dangerous in a lot of ways. And I think one of the unfortunate things, and I'm sure of 20 years of experience, you would agree, it probably comes down to lack of training, lack of funding, the huge amount of pressure you guys are under, so on and so forth. And I remember when and I don't know if I've ever said this on the show, when the movement around Black Lives Matter first started happening, obviously as someone who is of color, it was really important for me to go march, be in the streets. I had a petition that got over 500,000 signatures to end racism in America on change.org. Like, I was on the news talking about these things, and I shared this story one day. When I was when I was 8 years old, my stepfather, dude, was just the most abusive man you could ever imagine, was
mhm,
just kicking the out of me and my brothers, and my grandmother had happened to come home, or to our house. Well, she didn't live with us, and we're just, like, huddled up in this corner crying, covered in bruises, covered in marks, like, the whole thing, and that day, she called the police, and I really, to this day, I truly believe that had they not shown up, I probably wouldn't be talking to you, right?
right,
And I posted that, and dude, people flamed me. They
right,
destroyed me for sharing this experience where I'm like, not look, not all people in personal development are good. Not all cops are good. Not all
sure,
everybody's good. Like, there's gonna be some bad people in the world. What do you think? And I'm just going straight to this because it matters to me, and
sure.
this is why I wanted to have you on the show. How do we bridge this gap as a society between this conversation about all cops are bastards, which I do not agree with. Some are, I'm a bastard sometimes,
Right.
everybody is, right? How do you bridge that gap between that and people who just they want safety, they want protection, but we live in such a polarizing country right now. I don't think we can even have this conversation.
Well, the problem is that we have to have the conversation, and I think to bridge the gap, you have to have the conversations, and you have to have some type of medium, whether it's because let's face it, the news isn't going to do it.
No,
You
it's
have
not.
to have some type of right. You have to have some type of medium or some type of venue to get out there. Like so here's a perfect story. So kind of the way this started is I have a business coach, and we started talking. We were talking about the podcast and stuff like that, and he told me a story about the bass player that he's in a band. Bass player is a black guy, and they started talking about this, and the bass player told my business coach that how he feels going to a Jewel, which is a grocery store, as a black guy. So my coach is telling me this, and I'm like, how do you feel that way? You're a guy going to a grocery store. That's the way I look at it. I mean, you're just a guy going to a grocery store. So we got into this long conversation, and it kind of never realized to me that I think of it as a guy going to a grocery store. There are still people in this world that think of it as a black guy going to a grocery store. And I'm like, how is that still how does that still happen? How does it like I just and I don't get it. And like when I answer a radio call, I don't get on the radio and say, "Hey, are they white? Are they black? Are they Hispanic?" No, these people are in trouble, whoever it is, and they need help, and you go. So as I was going through this and I'm thinking about this, I'm like, you just have to get out there and you've got to do something to help the people, everybody, understand from each other's aspect of what's going on and how it's not only feel, I mean, a culture, how you feel, what makes you feel that way. Like literally, I talked to this guy and and I'm like, okay, dude. So to me, I look at this guy going to a grocery store or whatever. He's like, But you got to remember, people look at me weird. And then he goes through this whole entourage. I'm like, okay. So to me, I didn't even realize that, but it's educational. Now I get it. Now I
Yeah.
understand. Okay, it feels a little weird. I get it. Now let's have a conversation to fix this. Let's have what do you call 'em? I call it like what speed dating. Let's have venues where you have the police, 2 policemen in uniform, which is, of brass. You have 2 true activists, the people that want to change, not just spout off about all this and all that, but that really want change. And you have a room of 100 people, 10 tables, 10 chairs. Out of those 10 chairs, 1 chair is reserved for a policeman in plain clothes. Nobody knows who they are. Every 10 minutes, all you do is talk about life and how it is and police this and people that and whatever. Every 15 minutes, you change. And then when you're done, you reveal the policeman and say, what have each one of you learned today? And how can we spread it to 10 people? It's not easy, but but innocent people are dying and people are getting hurt and people are getting punished for things that don't have to be.
Yeah.
That's how I think you bridge it. By having conversations.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's why I enjoyed checking out your podcast and what you're doing because you're having hard conversations, and I mean, even right now in real time, like expressing like you don't look, we don't know what we don't know, and
Right.
as a man of color, dude, I'm 6'4", covered in tattoos. Like when I see a cop behind me, it terrifies me. Right now,
Sure.
some of that comes from growing up and in the environment that I grew up in. And I'll be honest with you, and people on this show knows I'm certainly
Right.
not innocent of crime. So I have done some really
Right.
bad things in my life. But, today I look at it and I just simply think to myself, you know, we actually, and I don't think people really understand the truth of what I'm about to say. We live in the safest time in the history of the world. It's
Right.
never been a safer time to be alive, but we also live in the most media fueled time in the history of the world. So
Right.
anytime anyone ever does anything bad, it's highlighted, it's escalated to the point where everyone starts to show up and wave their flag against whatever that thing is. It's like, but we're also human. I think one of the bigger disconnects is just understanding some of the foundations of police work, understanding that this country is built on slavery. And I mean, obviously, that's a very deep in depth conversation that I don't know we
Sure.
necessarily need to go in right now. But I think you hit it right on the head. It's so much about the willingness to have the conversation. Like I fully anticipate just by having you on the show, there's going to be people who are going to be pissed off at me. But I think it's important because I look at the fact that we have to come together and we have to talk about incredibly difficult things, which is the foundation and the baseline of this show. So, Chris, as you go through this journey and as you're stepping deeper into having these candid conversations, from just a police perspective and your if you put your police hat on for a moment, what do you think is the most eye-opening thing that you've learned about yourself in doing this work?
People could change.
Mm.
People could change. I mean, I grew up, my relatives are Polish and they came, in the 50s and the 60s and all that, interracial rioting and stuff and how people felt about whatever. And you kind of, and you grow up in that environment. Um, and you kind of, I've learned to change. I've learned to, let people be people. And here's a perfect example. I mean, I grew up Catholic, very homophobic back then. Oh my God, it was frowned upon or whatever. And then as I get into police work, you go to homes where it's a homosexual couple with children, which back in the day it was like, oh my God, it's like, but as you learn, they are probably they're just parents. It doesn't matter. And I go to heterosexuals where they knock the crap out of their kids. Kids are bleeding from the eyes, punched in the face, cut, dipped in, hot boiling water. And it and growing up, it was, homosexuals are bad and they can't be parents and blah, blah, blah. And then I've learned over time that they just want to be parents. They're just parents. And there are good and there are bad and people are people. So I think what I've learned is that I don't care who you are, what you did, what you've done in your past. It doesn't matter. If you truly want to change, people can change. That's been my biggest lesson.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. And I look at my own life and it's like Dude, I'm such a different person. I mean, even than I was yesterday, right? And I think that's a
Sure.
part of the journey and that acknowledgement and growing up. And obviously there's an age discrepancy between you and I, but I grew up in a very violent home, right? And I
Mhm.
look at my life and I'm like, I'll never be violent towards a child, right? And I've
Yeah.
changed just the way I think about violence and self-talk and so many of those things in general. When people, I wanna switch gears and go a little
Sure.
bit deeper into conversation because you mentioned something that I think will probably shake people a little bit, and it's thinking about walking into these homes of these abused children, right? Now, obviously, the framework and the baseline of this show is to help give people tools to overcome those awful experiences. We don't know each other that well, but I'll share one with you. When I was 4 years old, my mother, who was a drug addict, she actually cut off my right index finger, right?
Mhm.
And so growing up in an environment like that, it really shaped who I am. And now obviously it's shaped me where I use that as a story to help empower people. It doesn't destroy my life every day like it used to.
Right.
But when you're operating, what are some of the signs that people can look for if kids are in danger? If we need to have intervention from the police or from public service?
Well, first, I'd like to I'm so sorry you had to go through that because I've seen that throughout my years, and it's devastating, and I'm so glad that you've, come to term with it and grew and are using that story to help other people because it's probably one of the most devastating calls. But I think what people need to look for is, you have all the telltale signs of disheveled clothing, bruising, um, they, um, they withdraw. They don't play well with others. They become violent on little things. Um, and I also think that people need to listen because kids will tell you in their own way, maybe not use the words, mommy hit me or daddy hit me or, mom slammed my fingers in a microwave or whatever. They won't tell you that way, but they'll use words like if little Tommy uses one word to describe something for 6 months and then he uses another word to describe something, that has to be a clue for somebody because they will tell you. Even though they're afraid, that's why they won't tell you verbatim, but they will tell you in the way they look, the way they act, and the way they speak. You just have to be cognizant and you've got to listen.
What do you do with that information?
So what I do, normally when we get involved as the police, it's already, we're there till DCF shows up and a grandparent or another parent or a guardian. Um, so we see it till the kid's safe. What you do as a civilian is you report it. Because here is my take on this, and I'm gonna probably get a flamethrower email from 1,000 people. It goes to see something, say something. If you don't think something's right, say something. Take it in the context. Because if DCF showed up at my door, I'd be like, "Okay, what's up?" "Well, we got this report, that this, and this report, that." "Okay, come on in, look around. What do you need? What do you need?" "Okay." It takes 5 minutes, and then it can go away, alright? Um, but you have to you just can't fly off the handle and start calling DCFS for every little thing. I think there's enough avenues where you can get enough people involved to make an educational decision how far you take it, whether it's another teacher, a friend, or whatever, run it past somebody. But take that information and let's just say you're just like, okay, it's just weird, but it doesn't rise to the level of. Just keep that in a back file of your head, because then the next time it happens, now you got two. Now we have to look at things a little deeper. But take that information, either store it or use it.
Yeah, and I think you hit something right on the head. It's like you have to be willing to and look, you might lose friends in this process. You might
Right.
lose family members who are gonna be pissed off at you because maybe it's not even what you think it is, but more often than not, it actually is what you think it is. And I think that as individuals, and I think maybe that's really difficult because we live in a very separated time,
Hmm.
as opposed to ever before. And the dangers of abuse live in your cell phone now and on the internet and child trafficking. I sponsor a nonprofit called OUR, Operation Underground Railroad, where they help rescue children from child trafficking. And it's like
Mhm.
they find kids from video games on phones, right? I mean,
Right,
it's literally everywhere now. And so I think there's a level of diligence that one must play in order to do that. And recognizing that like reaching out to the police is not a bad thing. I think that
right,
there's a conversation that I've had in my head about this. I'll give you a perfect example. I was on the highway, gosh, probably about a month ago, and it was later in the evening. It was probably like 10 o'clock at night. And you know somebody's drunk on the highway when they're driving on the shoulder at 10
right.
o'clock at night,
It's a clue, right.
right? It might be a telltale sign. And so I pick up my phone and I call the police. And for a moment, there's hesitation, right, Chris? Because there's a hesitation because I go, well, what happens when? What happens if? And I think because of even the program I'm trying to move through, through media, through television and movies and all the exposure I've had, it was like, okay, if I call the cops, or will they hurt that guy? Will they kill that guy? Blah blah. And then I thought to myself for a second, well, wait a second. What if that guy causes a 10-car pileup and a pregnant woman
Right,
dies and her kids are in the back of the car and things like that?
right,
And I did, and I made the decision. Now, and one things that I know because I've done it before is like report it anonymously. They asked me my name. I said, I don't want to give you my name. It's anonymous. Go and find this guy. He's right here. How do there are people who are just terrified to reach out. There are women right now listening, or men who are being abused in their home. Maybe their children are being hurt. There's all of these different reasons why it would make sense to have police intervention. And a lot of it's in these very dangerous situations. Why do you think it is that people do not reach out in those moments, especially of danger, and often, as you know, too late? And how can we give them some tools to feel safer to do so earlier?
I think it's fear of repercussion. I think obviously the children don't reach out because then they're gonna get the shocked out of them by whoever the abuser is. If they come in and by the time that the police or DCFS get there, they set the stage. They got milk in the fridge, they've covered the bruises with turtlenecks or whatever. They had a chance to set the stage. But when that person or DCFS leaves or the police leave, they're gonna get the snot knocked out of 'em. I think it's fear. The second thing is I think it's also fear from an adult standpoint that they're afraid to lose friends. And listen, I've done a number of things, and just by what you're telling me, by getting out, getting from where you were as a child to where you are now, it took a lot of self-discipline, self-reflect, hard work, dedication. So for you to go, well, listen, if I lose a friend because I'm going to report something that I think is an abusive situation or bad, and then so be it. I'll make another friend. I'm the same way. I'm not afraid to lose friends. For stuff that is so important to me, and I don't care what it is, whether it's child abuse or my view on whatever you know guns or abortion or whatever. I don't care. It's what I believe in. I'm not afraid to lose friends. And I think if we get over the fear and realize the outcome can be this child will live another day. This person will not go down the road and kill a school bus of children. And I'm willing to lose that to gain this. I think that's over, and number two, as far as like the whole, are the police going to kill him or whatever? I think you and I could have a whole different show on that. Um, but statistically speaking, people make their own beds and they lie in them. And for anybody to worry about the person who is committing a crime, driving drunk on the road, abusing a child, to get over that fear of what could happen to them based on their interaction with the police, you got to kind of put that aside because the probability of them getting hurt by the police is substantially lower than them hitting somebody and killing them or abusing a child till they die.
Yeah, and 1 in 5 children die in their home today.
Yep. Yep.
And that's a like, even saying that stat just gave me the chills, man, because it's disgusting.
It
And
is.
I
It is.
think
It is.
I
It is.
think about the truth that we can come together and we can create change, and we can heal, and we can help each other be better human beings.
But
As we
look at it
go
this
in
way
a
too.
please.
Not to interrupt, but look at it this way. As policemen, And I think just as a human race, we should we should, and I do, take an oath to defend people that can't defend themselves. Adults, um, whomever. But ultimately, a child who is extremely defenseless, that doesn't even can't even use words, that is so powerful inside me to make sure that they are defended and they are able to grow as best they can into the best pillars of society. That just it gives me a lot of motivation.
What about that drives you?
I think what the thing that drives me the most is I just never did like bullies. And I don't care if, you're picking on somebody because they don't dress the same way, they can't defend themselves because they come from a poor family, a black family, Hispanic family. You know, I've seen it all. Interracial marriages. Your shoes are too big. Your pants are too short. You don't have the same purse. I've seen it all. And for me, I just don't like bullies. I just don't. Because everybody is their own individual and should be able to live the way they want to live.
Yeah,
That's what drives me.
yeah, I agree. Now, what was that because you experienced bullying as a child, or was it just you just felt like you wanted to stand up for people?
I don't wanna say bullying because I really was never bullied because I was a bigger kid and, and I played football and stuff, but it was, I guess, I guess you could say it was a sense of bullying, but it was more of a mental thing because I didn't wanna go to parties. I wanted to work. I wanted to work on my business. I wanted to go out and get 5 more houses to cut grass so I could charge $5 and pay guys 3 and make 2, or, I didn't wanna go out and get drunk or whatever. I wanted to work on this and work on myself, um, and so it was more that I wanted to be me. I didn't wanna be anybody else. And I think a lot of people took that, feel like I was kinda weird, kinda different, especially growing up. Like, everybody's going to parties and, doing whatever they do, and I'm like, I just wanna go home, sleep, because I wanna get up and, work on my business or be an entrepreneur. And I think that kinda drove me because, um, I wanted to be me. I wanted to be the best part of me or the best product of me I can, because I get one shot at this. And I think that for me kinda drove me through high school 'cause and again, if you wanna call it bullying, it was like mental bullying. But, I mean, obviously they'll never beat me up or whatever, but, I think that's what kinda gave me my drive to, like, let people be who they are. They get one shot at this, and let them do it the way they want.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we do have to give each other the space to step into whatever it is that you decide is best for you. When you were growing up, did that sense of so I grew up a Boy Scout and I felt this is weird. You've seen this, but most people probably don't relate. I grew up a Boy Scout in the hood. It's a very strange experience, right?
Right,
And
right,
but it played a really beautiful, important role in my life. I thought I was going to go into the military. I destroyed my knee. I couldn't get in. Also, I had graduated with a 1.2 GPA, so they weren't
mm,
gonna let me in anyway.
right.
And I didn't have a high school diploma. And so my my sense of service as a kid was like, all right, well, I can't do that, so whatever. How do you think people just in the day to day can be of more service to their family, their friends, their communities? Because I think most people think to be of service, they have to be a firefighter or a cop or in the public service. But I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. So how can people be of better service just in the day to day?
I just think, I mean, you don't have to be a firefighter or a paramedic or a policeman or whatever to be in service. You just have to be a good person and be able to help people. I mean, and just and speak your truth and speak your story. I mean, I'm not ashamed to tell my parents that I love them dearly, but I didn't want to live check to check and, and whatever. And I go out and I strive to do that. Um, you know, whether it's nephews or nieces or people on the street um that are like, well, I may not, or I don't want to, or whatever, just be there for them and be a sounding board. Be a positive role model. Like, if this is something you don't want to do, don't do it. If you do want to do it, do it. I'm here for you. I think to be of service, you have to treat people well, try and bless people if you're blessed, be there for people, and point them in the right direction. You don't have to carry a gun or put out fires. You just got to be a civilized, good human being that when people need some assistance, you're there for them or offer it for free to whomever.
Yeah. I totally agree. And you said something about like speaking your truth, like being honest. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. And it sounds to me like you've had the privilege or luck maybe, right, of being able to step into that from a young age. For me, it took, I mean, I'm probably still figuring it out today, right? And I
Sure.
think a lot of people are, but what,
Absolutely.
how do you kind of step into that? How do you actually own and speak your truth, especially if you know it might upset somebody? Because I piss people off all the time, so I get it.
You and me both, bro. You and me both. I just think that you have to be comfortable with it and you don't get emotional about it and you speak from the heart. I just think that this is me and we could and allow you to have your opinion, but yet we're still civilized human beings that can be friends just with different opinions. But the goal is the same, whether you're talking about, world peace or, maybe, uh, going into your community and reducing crime in this community or reducing teen predator, whatever it is, just because you have a different idea of it and I have a different idea of it, that doesn't mean we don't have the same goal in common. But we can hopefully sit down and you'll be able to give up a little, I'll be able to give up a little, meet someplace in the middle and solve this. So for me, it's just going, what is your end goal? And don't deviate from your true self. And I think if you run into enough people, there are going to be a majority of the people that actually want to sit down and talk. But if you give them the avenue not to be afraid and not go, that's ridiculous, and go, okay, I hear what you're saying. I don't agree because of this. I think if you actually sit down and give people the avenue that where they can speak their mind and speak the truth and listen, they don't have to be afraid. I think that's a big part of it. Don't why should people be afraid? Why should you be afraid to tell me how you feel or how you grew up or that you're afraid when you get pulled over by the police? Why? Okay, let's talk through it. There's been times I've been on stops with people that I was out there for 15 minutes on a basic cell phone or whatever. And as soon as the young man said, you know what, I was scared I was going to get shot. Okay, guess what? Here's the deal. You're not going to get shot because you don't have a gun, right? No. Do you want to kill me? No. Okay. I was out there for 15 minutes having a discussion with this young man. And by the time we were done, we shook hands. He had my personal cell phone number. Now, that young man is going to go out and talk to 10 other people about, hey, I understand that why you're scared. I get it. But here's what you could do and tell your friends to do this, and it'll all go a lot smoother. So I take 10 minutes out of my day to help to ease somebody's fear. Now, guess what? The next policeman he talks to, if he's afraid of something, he'll have a conversation with him.
Yeah, that's powerful, and I do think it's community based, right? And it's conversational, and it's about the willingness to have hard conversations. I mean, that's
Right.
literally why you're here right now, because I want to have a hard conversation. And I know this conversation is hard because we're talking about child abuse and we're talking about being a police. We're talking about this huge discrepancy between both of our worlds. I mean, like you look at this and it's, I think constantly, especially when it comes to this show, I'm like, I want to not only understand for me, but I want this audience and I want the people who consume this to just think about the possibility that maybe what we believe isn't true. And we live in a country. I don't know if you've ever read Mindset by Carol Dweck, but it's arguably the greatest book ever written. And we live in a country, especially in the United States, in which everyone is so like standing on their hill about something specifically. And it's like,
Right.
wait a second, that's the ultimate fixed mindset. It's the ultimate fixed mindset to pigeonhole people into something because of how they look, how they talk, how they act, their career, what it is that they do, as opposed to just realize like there's 8 billion people on
Right.
planet Earth. We're not
Right.
going to agree with each other on everything. Chris, I'm
Right.
sure you and I probably don't agree on a lot of things, but we probably agree on a
Sure.
lot of things. And I think it's in
Sure.
the discourse in which we can figure that out. One of the things I was curious that I want to kind of go back to as we progress in the conversation that I thought was really interesting. And I think that this holds true for a lot of people. They want to be of public service. I have many friends who are teachers, who are amazing people. I have friends who are police officers who are amazing people. I have friends, and my little brother is right now, he just literally today texted me right before this conversation that he passed his test for the Indianapolis Fire Department, and he wants to be
Sweet.
of service. And I'm super excited about that. And I love everyone who wants to be of service. I don't love that they're poor. And
Right.
so one of the
Right.
things that
Right.
I wanna go
Right.
into is, you talked about this idea that you're able to be entrepreneurial and have this job and build wealth in your life and not have to suffer through, "Hey, we didn't sign the check, so we get electricity for 10 days." One of my big missions in life is to empower people with the tools also to not live in poverty. And as inflation goes up and as cost of goods go up, like, this ain't slowing down. And we
Right.
need ways for people to become financially stable, often independently of their career of choice. So what I'm really curious about for really everyone is how do you kind of step into that arena where you're able to both have this career and this thing that you're driven by, but also go and build something else to create financial stability in your life?
Well, I think it starts off with a goal and a passion. Like what and my father gave me the best advice when I was growing up. And he said to be the person you want to be, figure out what you don't want to be
Mm,
and be what you want to be and do what you want to do. And that's kind of like where I took that from because I didn't want to do these things. So what is my avenue? What's the reverse engineering to do it? And that's what I did. Fear is the second thing. Trust me. I had a child on the way, house, mortgage, cars, married. And when I decided to be a policeman and then start this large entrepreneur journey and make that leap. Um, but I just had to take it in perspective. I had to work and then come home and work and then, make time for my family and everything. I just think if you do it in a systematic manner where you can devote a little bit to everything. And I well, not even a little bit, but if you sit down with your own self or your partner and just say, hey, look at this is what I want to do, this is where I'm gonna go. We have to set a schedule and you truly want it and you don't give up and you don't let fear take over, I think you'll do it. Now, don't get me wrong, it may not be like look at I just started my coaching business. Do I know if that this is gonna take off? No, I don't. But you know what? It's something that I thought I could be of service. It's something I'm very passionate about to help people become successful, just like you, just to not live in poverty. Maybe I could help. Guess what? I'm going to give it a shot. I think if you go out there and you try, and trust me, you will fail. Things are not going to work out. Now, I'm not talking about failing where you're going to lose your house, your car, or whatever, as long as you set it up right. But stuff is not going to take off as fast or whatever. Just keep going. If it's really something you want and you're passionate about, just keep going. Fear is going to be there. It's just, and I don't care. I don't care what you do, where you go. Coming on this podcast, I'm fearful. Going to hit the next house, I'm fearful. Starting this other business, I'm fearful. I mean, so things are fearful, but you just have to meet them head on as best you can and do it.
yeah. Where do you think that support plays a role in this? Like, where do you I think most people think they have to do this stuff on their own, right? For you, what does that mean?
I mean, for support, I think for me, it's for my wife. My wife doesn't really have an entrepreneurial mindset, but she knows that I got to be me. She looks at me like I got nine heads. She doesn't understand, but she lets me be me. And then I engage with people who have that mindset. And it gives you motivation, it gives you encouragement and stuff like that. And again, I also think, with the people that don't necessarily think the way you think, if you have their support of by like, okay, crazy, you do you. I'll, and then and like here, my daughter and my wives, they have they'll come in and say, hey dad, come on, time out. Let's do an hour or whatever. And they have every right to do it, where I'm sure when we first started they were afraid to, you know, but you've got to talk about it. And that's where your support comes from. I think your support comes from people that love you and either are like, hey, your cheerleader, or they let you do you. And then you have these other people that you're networking and your friends and everything that are there from a entrepreneur standpoint, life standpoint, that are there to support you.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like so much about that is about community, right? And coming
Yes.
together and recognizing that, at least for me, and this is what I think about every single day is like I can't do any of this on my own, right?
Nope.
And I can't have hard conversations without having the supportive people who are willing to sit down across from me and have the hard conversation. And it's so reciprocal because you know what? I think we often feel like we're on an island, right? We're by
Mhm.
ourselves. Nobody gets us. Nobody understands. It's like, well, that's actually not as true as you want to believe it is.
Right,
It,
right,
it's really fascinating how supportive people will be. I mean, because you think about sitting down and getting into the real truth about life, and it's like we're all trying to figure this out together. We
right.
don't know what we're doing.
Right, and I just think I mean, support also comes from being able to sit down and have this conversation because I'm all right, let's just take I'm boots on the ground. I see that there is a majority of crime and, babies being born without fathers in the Black community, okay? A lot of recidivism for people going back to jail. Well, let's just take jail. Well listen, we build road and this is from a guy who doesn't know, I've learned about the culture, but I'm not in the culture. Well, listen, if we know that people go to jail, black men go back to jail more often than most people. Well, then why don't we set up a program? We build roads, right? You get 300 men that are in jail, and you teach them to build a road. They go out there and they work with these companies. They do their time they do their time. They get up to at work at 5. They go out, they learn to build roads. They come back at 6. They get paid $30 an hour just like anybody else. Every week they sit down and with a financial person and they're like, okay, you made $500. And I don't care what the numbers are. It costs you $1 a week to stay in the county jail. It costs you $2 because you have children. It costs you $3 for food. This, that, okay. At the end, this is what you have and this is what you should go do. Okay. Then when they get out, these young men have a skill. They have they feel better about themselves that they don't have to go do crime to survive. Now, are they going to go build roads? Who knows? But guess what? Now, if they go work at Best Buy or they go work at Jewel, or they want to go to school because they know what can happen. Why aren't we doing that again? This is just something we know where the problems are, and I think by having the hard conversations with people that you don't know about, like why can't we fix this? Because to me, any problems could be fixed because there's always a solution. Why are we not get why is and again, this could be a whole nother show, but I think the support also comes from conflict where we can have that conversation. And guess what? When we're done, there's a solution to the problem
You
because
know,
you
and
would know more about stuff than I would in some aspects, right?
yeah, well, and and there are people who are making strides at doing exactly what you're talking about, and there are people who are attempting to create massive change in the world. But and again, I think this is a long conversation that
Right,
probably is best suited on another venue. But you look
right,
at the prison industrial system. My uncle, who is a white man, is in prison for life, three
right,
strike rule, gone forever,
right,
right? And it's like
right.
his life is forever away because of his decisions and also because of the lack of education, the lack of resources
Sure,
and tools and supplies and drugs in this country and addiction and pharmaceuticals and the list goes
right.
on and on and on. And I wish it were as easy as just sitting down and be like, oh, this is the idea, let's go execute against it. But there are environments and I think it would be dismissive not to say that the for some people the cards are stacked against them. Statistically, me personally, I should be dead or in jail. Period.
Yes.
Period.
Okay.
And
Right.
I'm not, and that only comes from decisions that I've made. A little bit of luck too, not just to be straight up, but mainly because of decisions. And I think about if we can empower people and let them know that there's another way. And again, that's just like this conversation. We're having
Yep.
a discourse about another way to think about it. Because I don't
But
want people to be in fear.
that's what I'm saying, Michael. I'm saying that you you made choices and decisions. And I'll tell you what, I don't believe in luck. I don't. I
Mm.
believe in the fact that you made the choices to create your luck. Okay. It just it doesn't it it's you did that. Okay. You made the right choices and, were you in the right place at the right time sometimes? Sure. But guess what? That was by your choices and your decisions. But I digress. Anyway, but you did it. Why are we not like you and I? Why are we not sitting down with people who can make better decisions because you lived it? I've seen it. I have ideas. You have ideas and getting these venues out there. But what do we see? 52 shot in Chicago, 72 shot here, you know, uh, looting and rioting and all this stuff. Why do we see the problems and no solutions? And listen, we're not going to get it done with one conversation, but guess what? You and I sit down and we had this conversation. We're not gonna we're not gonna solve it, but guess what? We're gonna have a basis to start addressing one issue. I don't care what that issue is, whatever it is. We have a basis to start an issue. I understand you, you understand me. People see the proof that you did it. Bro, you had all the car stats against you, bro. I mean, like you said, you should be in jail or dead. Everything was stacked against you, Michael, but you came through. But that story needs to be told. And that story needs to be told on a bigger level. That story needs to be told where you're looking at it through a policeman's eyes so you could further, and that's what I'm saying. It's there. Look, but I think that what needs to be embraced is that people can't, and this can change. It's not going to be easy, but I think the fear of, well, this can't change, or if I go up and shake a policeman's hand, or if I go out to lunch with Michael or whatever, that I'm going to be viewed this way or that way. I don't give a 'Cause guess what? I get up in the morning, I thank God for a blessed day, I'm above ground and not in jail. I go out and I do my thing. I come home, take care of my family, be a good friend, be a good father, be a good person, try and make somebody else's day better. I thank God for the full day and I go to bed. I don't care what people think, but I do know that I wanna make a positive impact that day.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the same. And that's why when I decided to bring you on the show, I thought to myself, if there's one thing I hope people will take away from this conversation, and really obviously not knowing what it is, this isn't scripted. You and I are having a conversation. I thought to
Right.
myself, the one thing I hope is that at least we could plant a seed. At least we could
Good.
have a conversation in a way that is hopefully enlightening to people for one thing only. And,
Right.
not by my own forced hand have we landed here, but my thought was my only hope in this conversation is that we could help erase some of the fear of people reaching out for help and support from law enforcement when they're in danger in their home or when their
Right.
kids are in danger. And
Right.
my hope is that that's the one thing they take away. The conversation about the other elements, dude, we're gonna need a long time to get into that. But
Right.
my hope is today that the person listening right now whose child is being abused, or the wife that's being hurt, or the husband that's being abused, because men get abused too, right?
Sure.
Is that they'll be willing to pick up the phone for support, whether it's law enforcement or someone else to help in that situation. My
Right, and
last
I
before
wanna
I
say one more
go
I
ahead.
wanna say one more thing with that. Don't just stop at your local, police or your local, abuse places or, your police. There's federal, county, state. There are more venues that you can call if you feel that you are abused and you're not getting the satisfaction from a local government. Please, there's more venue. Local, federal, state, county, please. There are other avenues to get help. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I love that, and thank you for adding that because I think it's really important. Chris, I want to thank you for being on the show. Before I ask you my last question, tell everyone where they can find you and learn more about your podcast.
So my podcast is 3copstalk.com, the number 3copstalk, .com. Gmail is also if you have a suggestion for a show or you want to be a guest, number 3copstalk at gmail.com. And then obviously wherever you get your podcasts, Three Cops Talk, please download, listen, subscribe. And seriously, if you have any ideas, reach out to me. And if you want to, there's some life help. I just started my coaching business, the Coaching Cop. You can find that everywhere through coachingcop at gmail.com. But seriously, reach out to me anywhere so we can start having these conversations because it's as much as people don't think that this is true, it's hard for cops to go out each and every day to see the shenanigans that are happening, then we could have solutions.
Yeah. I love it. And hopefully more conversations like this will lead us down that path. My last question for you, my friend. What does it mean to you to be unbroken?
What it means to me to be unbroken is you have to be you. You have to stand up for who you are, what you believe in, where you want to go, and you have to allow it to be a safe place for other people to be themselves and let them get to where they're going and help them along the way. That's unbroken.
Brilliantly said, my friend. Thank you so much for being here. Unbroken Nation, thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, tell a friend. And until next time, my friends, be unbroken. I'll see you. Thank you so much for listening to Think Unbroken. Please share this episode with someone who could use it and help us move forward in our mission of ending generational trauma in our lifetime. And if you would, please take 5 seconds to pop on iTunes or Spotify, hit that 5-star, leave a review, and you can also reach out to us on social at Michael Unbroken or at Think Unbroken. And of course, you can check out our YouTube channel at Think Unbroken. Thank you for being a part of Unbroken Nation, my friends, and until next time, be unbroken. Hey, my friends, we will be right back to the show. But I have a question for you. Are you struggling with the impact of childhood trauma? Well, know that you're not alone. I'm here to let you know that I'm starting a brand new weekly coaching group that includes a year of live coaching, accountability, support, habit and goal setting, and more. I'm starting a waitlist for the group right now, and I'm only taking a handful of people. And I'll let you know that through this personalized coaching, we'll work together to help you understand how your childhood trauma has shaped your beliefs, behaviors, emotions, and will help you create a roadmap for healing and growth. Right now, you can schedule an absolutely free coaching session with me and get put on the wait list if you go to thinkunbroken.com. My friends, it's your time to turn your trauma into triumph, breakdowns into breakthroughs, and become the hero of your own story. And I'm here to support you in doing that. Just go to thinkunbroken.com to register for a free coaching call with me and to get put on the wait list for the brand new weekly coaching program.